Hey, welcome back. It is warming up, so I figure maybe we'll go and open up the pond. Spring's starting up. The season is getting going. We'll have to clear out some of our hand-dug ponds here. But for most part, we kind of let these naturalize. This particular hand-dug pond, I've got one of the outlets of our rain that comes under, and it fills in from just under and below here. So anytime it rains, we do get a fresh refill. This fills up over the ledge, and then there's a little overflow sill that's kind of rocked out so that there's no erosion, and then that just fills this swale. And then the swale used to fill, roughly to the height of midway up that berm there, but the dogs have dug a hole through there. This is where I used to have an overflow pipe, and I think what happened was some squirrels got into there, they were living in there, and then the dogs were hearing them, so the dogs dug all this out this winter time. So we'll have to fill that back in, because right now the swale is essentially just going to empty through there, which is fine. It doesn't collect a ton of water here anyways, and I believe that this is high enough as it is that it can allow this swale to fill and kind of do its job anyways. But you've been busy, haven't you? We're actually down in the waterfall area, and what happens when I winterize the pond is the water level drops below the low point, which is right at the corner here where it flows into this stream system. There's a stream here. Maybe I get up, you can see it a little clearer. So there's a stream system that runs over. There's a basketball there, so that's interesting. So we'll get that. And yeah, it'll fill water all through here. You can kind of see the water of the pond if I go up. I have to just make sure I don't fall 1 second. That's the last thing I need is a broken neck. So that'll come all the way down here and fill this whole area when I turn off the pumps and drain all the underground piping lines that go under the ground here up to the wetland filter, and then all around the wetland filter up to the waterfall. When I drain that in the wintertime, it all ends up down here in the overflow sump, and then just over time it'll evaporate over the wintertime, and then hopefully in the snow melt in the wintertime it'll fill back up. So we'll check that. Most years this is full again by now. Okay, perfect. So we've got a full sump. I gotta be careful to not drop my camera down there because that would not be recoverable. So essentially what I do is I decouple this, and then just by gravity all the water feeds itself and feeds back down into this sump. So what I'm gonna do is reattach this, and I'll just do that quick. Okay, so reattached, and I'll do the other one now. And always be careful not to touch fuzzy caterpillars. That is a very good lesson in general. Okay, so same thing here. This one, the pipe is kind of pushed out into it. It's really hard to decouple this one, but it's fairly easy to recouple it. Okay, just tighten that real good. Two hands. Okay. Put the lid back. Take some. It smells good. Okay. So now these are turned back on, or these are sort of set up, so we can actually just plug them in. Okay, so we should get one flow going to the wetland filter and one going to the waterfall. Okay, so that's good. That means there's no frost left in the ground. So what I'm going to be watching for now is for any debris that would have caused a buildup, which will let the water jump over the pond liner and outside of the pond, because that'll just cause erosion. What's that? So this will take some time to fill and then overflow and fill, but we'll get some nice oxygenated water in the pond for the fish. And then we'll also see the wetland filter start to fill up from both sides. The pond will fill up from this here coming in, and then also the wetland filter is getting some water pushed in. But we've got all of our irises coming in there, so we want to get some water to them before they die out. The irises and the cattails and reeds, some of these plants can be problematic in areas, but they're very contained in the pond here, and they serve a very special function, an important function of filtering and cleaning the water. So before it gets too warm out, we want to get that water circulating through those plant roots, getting pushed up through the wetland filter. This wetland filter is about 4 feet deep, of just like a chimney of rocks, and the water comes in the bottom. And all the irises and cattails that are planted in there, the roots go all the way down right through that 4-foot bed. So as the water pushes up through that root and rock filter media, it gets cleaned and scrubbed. And then also we're going to add in some cold water bacteria into the pond now, just to kind of give it a little bit of a boost. And it's that bacteria as well that pollinates all the small little rocks and crevices of the pond, and that will really help clean and filter the water out as well. Okay, so here is our cold water bacteria. We bought a bucket of this just to kind of get the pond going in the cold months. Because it gets so cold here and our pond has such a long dead time compared to like a warm water pond, I think it's beneficial. And we place a bunch here where we know that the pond flow will push it out and spread it. And this looks like I'm adding chemicals to the pond, but it's not. This is just pure organics. These are just bacteria. So this is an area that I have to watch as the pond fills, and that is because this is the low edge right here. So I put this board here so I can go and harvest my peaches and my sea berries in the fall, but also just now so I can do spring cleanup. So because this is the low edge of the pond, if there's a whole lot of blockage in this area, it can very quickly divert where the low edge is, And if it diverts it away from this river, then I can have essentially all the flow of the pond being pushed out to somewhere else, and that can cause massive erosion problems. So I'll show you what else I do. Is in the, oh, hello. See, really healthy sign of a healthy pond are frogs. So for anyone who doesn't know, frogs are like the canary in a coal mine. Where are you? Yeah, you're right there. So if you have a healthy frog ecosystem in your pond, they're such fragile, sensitive creatures that if you have frogs and they're healthy and thriving in your pond, you likely have very good clean water. See, so one of the things I do is I dig up the edge of that pond filter and I kind of rip it up and pull it up a little bit so that as this fills, I can just monitor to make sure that as this fills, it's not going to overflow and get stuck anywhere. There's a lot of leaf debris in here that I'll come and clean up as this starts filling up with water, and it'll be a little easier to grab. And I'll just make sure that we don't have any bypass, because if the next low area, so is this, and then the next low area from here, there's an area that's kind of low there, but the desired low area is of course over the waterfall here. So if any part along this edge is lower than that, then it'll just waterfall there instead, right? Because water will always seek the path of least resistance. So what happened one year was that's exactly what happened. And one of these areas was the lowest, essentially because debris got caught at that far end of the waterfall and kind of plugged that a little too high. So this became the low edge and water was flowing down this area here. And I actually had a bit of an erosion problem. I had to backpack that up or else I'd lose this whole pond. Like, just think about what would happen if we had erosion on this hill. Rocks would fall, then everything else would lose its stability and it would fall. And some of these rocks are obviously just massive rocks. So the whole entire pond would essentially collapse if you're not on top of stuff. But now that the pond is stabilized, it's been a couple years now, I really just have to make sure that I'm not lazy about things and that I'm cleaning out stuff like basketballs that could change where the low edge is, and we just want to make sure that the low edge is always where we want it. The other thing you're always watching for is you always want to have covered liner. So what happens in the summertime or in the wintertime when the flows stop is some of your rocks will move. So we want to make sure that we cover back up, and I'll have to probably get some more rocks. We want to make sure that we cover up the liner, because once the strong sun starts in the summertime, you don't want any liner exposed to solar UV because it'll break down fast. So we want to make sure that we always have rocks covering any liner of the pond. So we'll go in and make sure that that's happening everywhere. Okay, you can see we're starting to overflow here at this low edge of the pond. And some of these small rocks here, I know there shouldn't be any small rocks up here because they were all supposed to be up top. So they've been pushed over the years. I'll try to clean some of those out and push them back up top. But again, I don't want to change the water level too much. And another thing about all this leaf debris, I'm going to clear some of it out because I want to make sure that the water goes where I want it to go. For example, over this waterfall ledge here. So I do want to make sure that the water goes here, because this is essentially what the pond was designed for in terms of erosion. We want to have water flowing over rock. But you know, this is just such fantastic compost and mulch for trees. So I'm going to take advantage of that as well. This is essentially all sea buckthorn leaves from the sea buckthorn trees here. But I also do want some of it decomposing, because that is part of nature, and it's actually a really important part of the carbon cycle of the pond, is having that carbonic acid go into the pond through the decomposition of some leaves. And that helps balance out a whole bunch of chemistry issues that can happen in the pond regarding pH, nitrates and nitrites even, a whole bunch of stuff. So I do want to have some decomposition of leaves happening in my pond at all times if I want a healthy pond for my friends. Right? Right. Alright, last thing is this party pump. So this party pump is the last thing I usually start up. And this is the big boy. This takes suction from the underground, from the bottom of the deep section of the pool, of the pond, sorry. So deep down there, where the fish are hiding out, ignore all the floating algae, stuff's just getting stirred up. It'll get sucked around and filtered out, and then we'll like kind of skimmered out almost through that waterfall section. So at the bottom of the pond, it's hard to see now because it's kind of dark in there. At the bottom of the pond, we've got a long pipe of O-pipe, and it's kind of like a big long snorkel tube. And it acts as a diffuser for the pump. So when the pump is pushing water up into the bottom, it pushes it along that whole entire pipe as a diffuser, and then it comes out in a, not a turbulent way. It comes out very uniform across the bottom of the pond pump. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. It actually takes suction from the bottom, so it actually sucks it out in a diffuse way, and that's so that you don't suck fish in and stuff like that. Fish, frogs, light forms into the suction of the pump. So the fish can barely feel that coming on because it's sucking through the whole bottom of the pond. And it isn't sucking yet because I haven't hooked it up. But that comes over to here, to this pump here. And this pump here, we basically just rip this pipe off the coupling and let that drain out down the hill. We've rocked out this hill so that we prevent erosion. And then we've also put some plants in there as well to stabilize the soil. And then this pump pumps it, and that pipe goes all the way around the side and up to the top waterfall. So this is a pump that sucks from the bottom of the pump, or from the bottom of the pond, back up to the top of that waterfall. So it's kind of like a bypass pump because it doesn't hit the whole entire river system, and it doesn't hit the wetland filter. So this is a pump that is less about filtration, because that's what the bog filter does, and it's more about water turnover. So any stagnant water that's holding at the bottom of the pump of the pond, this actually helps turn that over to get a more complete turnover of pond water. Okay, so we just basically reattach that, and then I'll crack this open, fill this with water to prime it, then try to get water as full into this pipe as possible, as backfilled as possible, and then start it up, and that should be good. So I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to do that priming of the pump probably tomorrow. What I want to do today before I enter another item into the equation is I want to test turning this one on with this one off, turning this one on with that one off, turning them both on, and just testing to make sure that the flow is working for both of them. Just do some diagnostic testing of the pond, running it for a while and monitoring the level in that sump to make sure that I'm not getting any kind of leaking or anything like that, because I want to know that as early in the season as possible so I can help then try to trace and find where any kind of leak or flow bypasses. As the pond fills, you'll see it will come up really close to this filter, this line level. This is an area where it's usually quite high. So I want to make sure that I'm not leaking here, because if I'm leaking here, then that essentially means that that is plugged up, because it has allowed the water level to rise just a little bit where this is the low spot now. I think this is pretty much the other low spot that I found. So it's good when you have a pond and it's a lined pond that you discover where each of your lowest spots are, so that you know if that ever plugs and just a little bit so that the pond level rises, where is that gonna then overflow? And it's really important that you know those locations. I know for this lower area, it's around here, and there's also a couple areas right around there behind that big rock that might overflow and become the flow path. For this contained area, for this water shelf below here, there's a little area right near that tree. For that little pond, there's an area right kind of at the side there. So I can know where the water should flow, and if it's not flowing there, where it probably is flowing, and I can address that before we get any erosion concerns. So it's really important when you do get a pond like this that you learn it, you study it, and you do a little bit of kind of diagnostic assessment when you start it up each year, so you can make sure that everything's running smoothly and that you're not just going to run the pumps with a bypass leak somewhere and then you're getting a ton of overflow somewhere that you don't want it. Okay, so I think that's about it. Some exciting things coming up soon is fiddleheads will be coming up. So these are all fiddleheads here. So these fiddleheads will be coming up soon and we'll be able to eat these. For now, I'll just kind of probably tidy up the gardens and use them as mulch. Haskap plants are blooming. So that's exciting. So that's already happening. We're going to be eating haskaps in a couple weeks. Probably our cold hardy kiwi is starting to bud and push out. So that's really exciting. We've got daffodils, we've got green onions we can start eating. We've got garlic chives we can eat, which is a terrible weed, but it's edible, so eat the weeds. And we've got beautiful daffodils that we can enjoy as well. So happy gardening. I hope you guys are finding food wherever you are. And I'll probably do a more detailed video on, what's going on in the world of tariffs and food politics and all this sort of stuff, because I think a lot of people are very interested in that, and I've been trying to stay away from that stuff for the most part for my own sanity, but I think it's important enough to address, so I think we'll probably do that in the next video. But for this one, I just wanted to keep it non-political, non-serious, and just talk about plants, and I thought showing you how I open the pond is a nice fun way to start the season. So thanks for watching, and happy gardening, everyone. See you on the next one.